Timothy Granger stepped onto the immaculate marble floor of the art dealer's residence, its opulence a contrast to his humble beginnings. His sharp eyes surveyed the vast lobby, a cathedral to avarice, filled with ostentatious displays of art. His gaze settled on a mural that covered an entire wall. It was an indigo sea of velvet hues, unsettling and surreal in its depiction. His breath caught, the cold air in the room seeming to constrict around his lungs. "Detective Granger, what a delight," purred a voice as slippery as satin. Miles Harrington, the owner of Gossamer Visions, glided towards him, extending a hand adorned with an extravagant diamond ring. "Mr. Harrington," Timothy greeted, keeping his tone formal. His posture, a stalwart symbol of duty, belied the unsteady pounding of his heart. They spent the next hour touring the residence, the journey becoming an immersive study of Timothy's character. His reactions to the disturbingly emotive paintings revealed a man deeply attuned to the undertow of emotional currents. He was a bulwark of principles, scarred by past trials, yet also defined by them. A loyal servant to the law, his sincerity was his compass, navigating him through the sea of deception. They meandered through a maze of opulence, a symphony of highbrow conversations ebbing around them. The room was teeming with buyers, investors, sycophants, and artists, all drawn into the web of Gossamer Visions. Each face bore a haunting desire, an insatiable hunger lurking beneath a veneer of sophistication. As he moved through the throng, Timothy found himself assaulted by past triggers, the echo of an old, familiar enemy. The lavish banquet table, groaning under the weight of decadent cuisine, made his stomach churn. Each morsel on display seemed to leer at him, whispering old insecurities into his ear, pulling at the threads of a carefully managed trauma. Yet he pushed through, every step a reaffirmation of the battles he had won against his demons. As the day faded into twilight, an anonymous note found its way into Timothy's hands. "Watch the shadows," it read, a stark warning in a den of wolves. An unsettling revelation washed over him as he stood in the labyrinth of art and decadence, a chilling dread creeping up his spine. He stared again at the mural, the once indigo sea now appearing as a darker abyss, as if the painting was more alive and aware than a simple composition of pigments. An ethereal coldness seeped from the canvas, whispering tales of secrets waiting to be unearthed. He left the residence that evening with the feeling of being watched, an invisible noose of foreboding wrapped around his neck. The miasma of the velvet painting clung to him, a spectral remnant of a world that was quickly proving to be far more layered and complex than he'd imagined. Returning to the solitude of his modest apartment, he mulled over the disturbing undercurrents he'd encountered. The velvet miasma had begun to thicken, and he was at its epicenter. But Timothy Granger was a man of grit and tenacity, molded by personal affliction and committed to revealing the truth. As he laid down his weary head, he was oblivious of the cosmic dance of horror that would soon unfold. This was just the overture. The symphony of terror was yet to commence. Tomorrow, he would delve deeper into the web of Gossamer Visions, unknowing that his resolve would be the city's last hope against a lurking alien menace. As the dawn painted Charlotte in hues of soft gold and blush, the city resumed its mechanical rhythm, blissfully unaware of the intrigue unfolding beneath its sprawling skyline. Amidst its pulse, Timothy Granger prepared for another day of investigation, the anonymous note's cryptic message echoing ominously in his mind. His day led him to a host of art galleries, exhibitions, and studios under the patronage of Gossamer Visions. Each place was a monument to artistic splendor and excess. The artwork, beautiful yet unsettling, seemed to possess a strange quality, a hidden pulse that left the observer with an unease, a shiver running down their spine. It was as if the paintings were gateways to a dimension of dread, the horrors subtly masked by mesmerizing brushstrokes. In the heart of this insidious maze was the Gossamer Visions main office, a modern fortress of steel and glass standing sentinel against the city's historic backdrop. As he walked into the building, The symphony of ringing phones, fervent whispers, and clattering keyboards was a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the art galleries. He spent his hours in conversation with the company's staff and its patrons. The patrons, once influential pillars of society, seemed strangely altered. They were entranced by the artworks, their lives wholly consumed and dictated by the whims of the latest collections. The hunger in their eyes, an uncanny mirror to his own past battles, set an alarm ringing in the recesses of his mind. A series of interviews with the artists revealed their equally obsessive fascination with their creations. They spoke in hushed whispers, their words of frenzied poetry of awe and fear, about dreams and visions that inspired their works. The dreams were strangely consistent across the artists. Otherworldly landscapes, grotesque entities, and an underlying pulse like a heartbeat commanding their will. Throughout this exploration, Timothy's past rose like a specter, whispering its chilling narrative. The compulsion he saw in the artists and patrons stirred memories of his struggle with the eating disorder, the same haunted look, the same uncontrollable need, the same battle of mind and body. Every story he heard, every piece of art he viewed, wove itself into a fabric of slowly mounting horror. The threads were too similar, too aligned to be mere coincidence. An unsettling pattern emerged, a shared experience of compulsion and transformation revolving around the art sold by Gossamer Visions. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, he returned home, his mind spinning with theories and connections. The art, the patrons, the artists, they were all ensnared in an invisible web of alien influence, their reality manipulated and morphed. His eyes fell upon the anonymous note from the previous day. "Watch the shadows," it read. It seemed that the shadows were deepening, their contours sharpening into a nightmarish design. As he drifted into an uneasy sleep, he braced himself for the impending descent into the heart of the mystery. The web of Gossamer was revealing its sinister threads, the portrait of an unseen cosmic horror coming ominously into focus. Tomorrow, he would trace these threads to their terrifying source. In the stillness of dawn, Timothy Granger woke with a start, beads of sweat peppering his forehead. His dreams had been invaded by the same grotesque landscapes that the artist had fervently described. It was as though he'd wandered through a gallery of alien horrors, each more sinister than the last. An apprehensive shiver coursed through his veins as he faced the dawn, the foreboding weight of his investigations looming large. In the cold, sterile setting of the police station, he spread out the countless documents, reports, and interview transcripts. The patterns he'd identified now intertwined and twisted into a horrifying revelation. An otherworldly parasitic influence that seeped through the canvases of Gossamer Visions into the psyche of the beholder. From the shadows of hearsay and disjointed clues, he pieced together a chilling hypothesis. The art was not merely a medium for the parasites, but their breeding ground. Each stroke, each blend of color was not just an artist's impression, but a vessel for an extraterrestrial entity, intent on subjugation and control. Meanwhile, reports trickled in from across the city in the form of tales of madness and chaos. The once influential patrons of Gossamer Visions were falling into an abyss of obsession, their lives unraveling in a grotesque mimicry of artistry. He saw in their struggle a reflection of his own battle with his eating disorder, an invisible force exerting control, a mind battling the irresistible pull of compulsion. Late into the night, during a clandestine visit to one of Gossamer Visions' warehouses, he felt a surreal chill sweep over him. He stood before an enormous, yet-to-be-revealed painting, its surface veiled under a thick cloth. As he reached out, the pulsating dread of his dream returned, stronger and more potent. With a swift tug, he pulled the cloth away. The scene on the canvas was haunting, a maelstrom of grotesque alien forms that seemed to undulate before his eyes. A familiar coldness seeped from the painting, coiling around him like an unseen serpent. The alien parasite, sensing a new host, attempted to infiltrate his mind. In this moment of unprecedented dread, the scars of his past became his shield. The same mental resilience that had once helped him wrestle control from his eating disorder now fortified him against the alien intrusion. He was thrown back, breathless but unclaimed. He left the warehouse shaken, but with newfound resolve. The battle lines were drawn clearer than ever. He was not just fighting an investigation, but the same battle of control that he'd fought in 1 year ago. The city was ensnared in the grip of cosmic horror, and Timothy Granger stood as the bulwark against the parasitic tide. With the rising sun, a new day of investigation awaited. Yet this was not just a pursuit of justice anymore. It was a battle for liberation, a mission to free the city from the parasitic palate of Gossamer Visions. He found himself on the precipice of a horrifying abyss, and as he'd done before, he resolved to face it head-on. Dawn's rosy fingers stretched across Charlotte, the city stirring beneath the weight of an unspeakable dread. In the eye of this storm stood Timothy Granger, the weight of the city's fate pressing heavily on his shoulders. As the first rays of sunlight trickled into his apartment, he braced himself for the inevitable confrontation. Timothy made his way to the imposing fortress of Gossamer Visions. The looming structure appeared monstrous in the early light, its glassy facade reflecting distorted echoes of the city it had ensnared. As he pushed open the entrance, his determination was as palpable as the cold steel of the doors. A sense of chilling desolation hung heavy in the air as he navigated the once bustling office. The hum of productivity was replaced with an unsettling silence, an echo of the galleries that housed the parasitic paintings. He felt the oppressive presence of the alien entity, pulsating in rhythm with his beating heart. In the heart of this icy labyrinth, he found Miles Harrington. The once vibrant art dealer was a shell of his former self, his eyes glazed with the same haunting hunger Timothy had seen in the patrons. As he approached, Miles turned, a grotesque caricature of a smile splitting his face. "Detective Granger, we've been expecting you," he intoned, his voice a disturbing harmony of human and alien timbre. The pulse of the parasite was stronger here, an undercurrent of dread coloring their encounter. What ensued was not a battle of fist, but a clash of wills. Armed with the resilience carved from his past struggles, he stood resolute against the onslaught of the alien parasite. Their verbal exchange became a battleground, Miles's twisted eloquence echoing the parasite's influence and Timothy's steadfastness being a beacon of resistance. In the throes of the confrontation, Timothy drew from the wellspring of his trauma. He verbalized the ordeal of his past struggle with his eating disorder, turning it into a potent weapon. His words became the brushstrokes of his own narrative, painting a vivid portrait of a man who had wrestled control from the jaws of compulsion. The parasite recoiled from his resilience, its power waning in the face of his unwavering will. As he spoke, the oppressive weight in the room lifted. The alien pulse faltered, buckling under the strain of a battle it was not equipped to fight. With a final, powerful assertion of his victory over his past, he dealt the decisive blow. The parasite's control over Miles shattered, leaving a vulnerable man in the wake of its retreat. Charlotte breathed a sigh of relief as the news spread. The once captivated patrons regained their senses, the haze of obsession dissipating as the parasitic influence receded. The city was freed from the insidious web of Gossamer Visions, its inhabitants gradually reclaiming their lives from the cosmic puppeteer. As the dust descended on the liberated city, Timothy Granger, the beacon of resilience and tenacity, looked out over Charlotte. His battle, both personal and professional, had ended in a hard-won victory. But in the world of cosmic horror, triumphs are often ephemeral. As he contemplated the days to come, he knew that other challenges awaited. Other battles loomed on the horizon. Yet for now, he found solace in the knowledge that he had turned his past afflictions into the city's salvation. In the canvas of Charlotte's liberation, Timothy Granger was the masterstroke. In the face of unspeakable cosmic horror, he had emerged not just as a detective, but as a liberator, an embodiment of the indomitable human spirit that lurks within us all, waiting for its moment to shine. We appreciate you tuning in. If you fancied the content, show your support with a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to keep up with our eerie adventures. Eldritch Tales Factory has plenty more to offer. Until next time.